Welcome to Technology Brothers, the most profitable podcast in the world. Today, we are excited to talk about an amazing development in the show. We got a massive shout out in a huge newsletter by one of the best writers on the internet. Packy McCormick put us in his newsletter in one of the most important pieces he's ever written. It's called The Trump Bubble, and we're going through it today. Stay tuned. Jordy, what do you got?
All right, Packy, where to start with this guy? He has been ahead of many trends and somebody who's excellent at sort of crystallizing and owning a moment, right? Yep. And so in this case, he sort of has effectively broken down what he believes is a new, potentially multi-year trend called the Trump bubble. Okay. And
we're already seeing like evidence of this just post-election. Bitcoin goes up to 90K. The whole stock market rips.
Everybody's risk on.
Even just normal FANG stocks were way up. There was like a massive trade. I was talking to a trader who was like, he predicted that Trump was going to win. He just bought everything that was Trump aligned. Like he bought defense stocks. He bought anything that he thought would move, and it played out very well for him.
Yeah, and before we jump into this article, I think it's important to highlight that Packy, like ourselves, is not a political analyst. Sure. He does not discuss politics.
Sure.
He's fully focused on just analyzing the moment and technology trends. And so he actually highlighted before he even jumped into this that he's had a number of incidences where he's covered something and made a lot of people mad, right? That sort of people tend to get mad on the internet. He, a while back, wrote a piece called Why the Democrats Lost Tech, and he had a lot of people got mad at him for even painting any type of positive light on Trump. And then, funny enough, a lot of Republicans got mad at him as well because they believe that there was nothing at all redeemable in the Democratic Party. So his broader point with the article is that there's nothing that impacts the industries that he's investing in and that he's obsessed with more than this sort of like new Trump administration, right? And so that's a little context for the piece. So like John said, the last week or so has been pretty risk on. I think a lot of, there's just been broadly a lot of companies doing really well, except for a number of pharma companies yesterday when a certain person got... RFK got appointed. But yeah, Packy's broader point is that we're at the beginning of the mother of all bubbles, which kind of makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Yes.
It's sort of...
What's interesting about this is like there's one narrative that's like, oh, we're going into this bubble, but at the same time, it's like the business cycle always kind of restarts after a major crash. And we saw that major crash, 2022, 2023, things were really rough. Yep. It makes sense that this would be the beginning of something. It's just crazy that it already feels bubbly. But I think back to like when I got to Silicon Valley in 2012, like we were doing like essentially YC, and all these different like VCs would come and speak, and there were a ton of articles in TechCrunch like tech is in a bubble, like the tech bubble, like the Series A crunch, like you won't be able to raise Series A, and that bubble literally lasted for over a decade. But it felt like a bubble then. And I think the lesson
and there were sort of
that,
minor
like,
oscillations, right? 2017, 2018
there was some
sort of a rough
minor sell-offs, but like for the most part, like going long through that period was like the phenomenal strategy. And so even when it's frothy, like the business cycle is more of a massive driver than like any specific like bubbly valuation in a single stock or a single asset class. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like the true beneficiaries of the Trump administration are, not necessarily realized right now.
Totally. It's a long-term thing.
Who else got shout-outs in here besides us?
Yeah, well, I mean, right away he shouts out Bern Hobart's book, which we've talked about.
Press. I just got it in the mail actually. Tammy sent it to me.
Amazing.
Yeah, I gotta bring it in.
He shouts out Boom, Bubbles and the End of Stagnation.
Yep.
Recommends that everybody read it because it's kind of like a cornerstone of his entire thesis here.
We should read it and do a review on the show.
But yeah, the high level with the book is that there's basically 5 overarching traits shared by all of the technologies and mega projects that they had studied, which was 1, definite optimism and constrained vision, FOMO, fear of missing out, and you only live once dynamics, which we love.
FOMO and YOLO.
Okay. Excessive risk taking and overinvestment.
Yeah.
Parallelization and coordination.
Yeah.
reflexivity and hyperstition. And he basically says that he feels many of these himself right now. I remember he tweeted maybe a couple weeks back that he is extremely overexposed to Bitcoin, crypto technology. I think he's an advisor to Andreessen Crypto, and obviously is active investor, both personally and through his fund. But even he was feeling FOMO despite being almost 100% allocated to technology, right? So that is pretty significant.
I mean, if you think back to the original, like the last crypto bubble, like a lot of people were trading with like 10x, 100x leverage.
Yeah.
And right now, most people weren't sitting there with 100x levered positions.
Yeah.
They should
have been.
They were kind of like hodling, and being like, okay, I'm getting through this bear market, but they're not sitting there with some massive margin position. So, I mean, once that comes in, it's going to be insane.
Yeah. So he spends quite a bit of time defending bubbles, which I don't think we have to do on this. Like you and I, a lot of people like to use bubble as like a way to slander something.
But all of our listeners are students of capitalism.
Yeah.
They understand.
Yeah. I think we can skip over that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
but you should go get the book, and we should do a review on the show.
Yeah. So he talks a little bit about signs of a bubble.
Okay.
I think that Manhattan Project, Apollo program, those are bubbles that had direct government oversight, right? They were like government created bubbles in a way, which was like massive overinvestment.
Yep.
And his position is that the Trump bubble is going to look more like Moore's Law, which Byrne and Tobias in the book say Moore's Law is perhaps the most compelling and enduring example of a two-sided bubble, wherein the expectation of progress in one domain spurs progress in another, which then propels growth in the first, right? And so the idea here is like we're in this two-sided bubble, right? The Trump administration is telling people that it will be easier to build, invest in, and accomplish big things. This is Packy's words, which is already making people more excited to build, invest in, and accomplish big things, right? So it's a sort of like incredible podcast feedback loop. It's a podcast feedback loop, right? Positive feedback loop, and in our case, it's a podcast feedback loop,
that is true.
Right? I'm known to have a Freudian slip
Create
here or
more
there.
Content that we can react to. Eventually, this whole show will just be us reacting to our own
content.
Videos in an endless loop.
Yep.
An Ouroboros.
Exactly. So yeah, he shouts out Augustus, saying that he captured the sentiment as well as anyone. We have a 4-year window to go as hard as fucking imaginable, right? So here we are re-reacting to things that we've already reacted to.
We are in
anyway,
the
so I think it's the core kind of idea is that just people believing that things are possible now is kind of creating some real momentum with this bubble. It's across the board. Education, health, everything, kind of every category is kind of moving in a positive direction. So at one point, Packy shouts out, he says, I obviously love Jordy Hayes, John Coogan, and Eric Glyman's proposal to help bring transparency and efficiency to the government spending with RAMP, which we talked about last week. And this obviously came up somewhat as a joke, right? We were talking about how,
I mean, I'm sure that's how the government, I'm sure like the original moon landing was like a joke. They're like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if we landed on the moon? Or like, wouldn't it be funny if we built like a nuclear bomb? But then like, obviously people said it in, and
big silly things happen.
And that's the reason we had the Apollo program.
Yeah. And we had, something we covered early in the show was some of the government spending on sort of boring line items, things like soap dispensers over the last few decades have gotten to be so egregiously priced due to lack of competition and lack of downward pressure to more efficiently, spend money. And so in many ways, getting the federal government running on RAMP is not at all a joke, because it will help us drill down and figure out where spend is being wasted that could be invested in healthcare, education.
It's not unreasonable.
And
it's great. I'm glad we got the
thank you, Packy, for the shout out. And
what did Sean McGuire have to say over there?
Sequoia's Sean McGuire said he's getting messages from physics PhDs asking how they can work in the Trump government.
Oh, that's huge.
Which, again, I think part of this optimism loop is that for the first time in our lifetime, you have non-political types that want to work in the government, which can't be understated.
I have a friend who was he's lives in Taiwan and has spent a lot of time in China, and he said like the biggest difference between like the way the Chinese government works is that they compel the best and brightest to work in the government, and a lot of that's forcible, but they like it's just night and day, and if we can. Obviously in America, because we're the land of the free, the home of the brave, like we need to do things differently. But if it's a meme, if it's a Packy post, if it's a tweet, like whatever it takes to get people to actually think that working in the government is a reasonable path, is a valuable path to something like a better life. Like that's really, really important. It shouldn't be seen as like, oh, like I got stuck with this, or I got to get out of here as soon as I can. And use this as a jumping off point. Yeah,
in China, the elite, the ones that stay in China, are oftentimes the ones that are in the party, right, in the government. Many of China's elite actually end up, leaving, becoming expats. But anyways, back to kind of the high level promises of the Trump admin. Make requirements less dumb. They want, they're pushing for regulatory reform across the board. They want to delete things like eliminating certain agencies. Eliminating the Department of Education might be a bit extreme. It sounds like maybe we should have an education department.
Elon said that there's 425 different departments, and he was like, I think we can do okay with just 99. It's it's like a funny phrase. It's a funny thing to think about. You can't even name them.
It would be kind of interesting to think about just putting like a very arbitrary rule, like any government organization can only have 99 departments. And so if you want to add a new department, you have to cut one.
Exactly.
Something like that would probably
laws too, where it's like the case text and the law is just getting more and more complex every single year. We're adding, and we need to be doing some code review here.
And a few others: simplify and optimize. They want to streamline the processes that do exist. They want to accelerate cycle times, which means speeding up approvals. So if that's stuff related to the private markets, right? SpaceX wants to launch a rocket. How do we get them, approval for that faster? And then just automation. How do we modernize like government systems, right? We've talked about wanting beautiful DMV apps, here in California. Can we do that on a national scale? And broadly, kind of Packy sums this up by saying, a willingness to make big changes is also a willingness to break things, right? And that's a willingness to take on a certain amount of risk. I think the government's gotten very risk adverse over the years, but we're now in the situation where the government, the new admin seems to be willing to take risks, and what that is leading to is people in the markets also going extremely risk on, right? Simultaneously, everybody's going super risk on, which could create the mother of all bubbles, which we've been praying for. So it is great to see things coming around. I think
that's where a lot of the optimism is coming from, is like there's been a lot of critiques about like, are the people that are going in administration like experienced enough? And the answer is like probably no. But like at least they might jar something loose, try something different, and there might be, a few experimental successes that lead to outsized power law-esque returns. And that's the value of shaking things up. It's like how like a huge portion of the alpha that was generated in Silicon Valley from the year 2000 onward was literally just saying, it doesn't matter if you're a 19-year-old kid. We trust you with $1 million to go build something. And this is kind of that version of that.
100%. Another, we don't talk about politics on the podcast, but, it's worth calling out that a big critique of Trump overall from the other side has always been that he is a threat to democracy. And one of the broader trends that we're already seeing, we talked about a few minutes ago, is this idea that a bunch of people now want to basically are more excited about participating in our government system, in our democracy. Sure. And Elon is the number one example of that. Like he sort of dominated the private markets, and then where can you go? What's the next sort of like battleground? he chose politics. That was the biggest way that he could have an impact on his business.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool to see the approach that he's taking with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. They're already using X to like be highly transparent and communicate.
I think there's already an account posting.
There's already an account. They're posting. They've got some good posters running it, I'm sure. And Vivek has said, DOGE will soon begin crowdsourcing examples of government waste, fraud, and abuse. Americans voted for drastic government reform, and they deserve to be a part of fixing it. So
that's cool.
It's this idea that the people that are kind of like spearheading these changes actually do want participation, which is the foundation.
Yeah, we like literally
democracy.
need like a whistleblower for that $150,000 soap dispenser.
Yeah,
like somebody sees that and it's just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
and there's some sort of incentive because I can basically go viral and get an Elon retweet if I post this, and so I'm going to call it out as opposed to just like, oh, it's just business as usual. Like that's always the way the government is. Like it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. So anyways, I think as much optimism as there is in tech right now, I don't think it can be understated how much fear I'm sure there is in Washington.
Yeah.
I would love, maybe we need to go over there and do some, we're not journalists, but we could go start having some conversations with people on the ground, get a sense of how they're feeling. Because if you are working in a bloated government organization right now, or you're a lobbyist that's been reliant on the pharmaceutical industry, those types of people, there's a lot. This is like the changes that the new admin wants to make are a direct threat to a lot of the way of life in Washington, D.C. From the bottom to the top.
So overall, fantastic article, Packy. We just have one bit of feedback. The name should have been the Trump pump.
The Trump pump.
The Trump pump.
Trump pump.
The Trump bubble's good. I mean, Packy is fantastic with his titles. The Great Online Game. Like he comes up with these really good coinages. He's like a master of Coogan's Law, where the more coinages, the better.
Yep.
But this one, Trump pump, maybe somebody already had said it. Maybe he needed to.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to talk about bubbles specifically because of the Stripe book.
Trump pump.
The Trump pump is.
And the last thing I would shout out, we love advertisers. We love advertising. Thank you to TrueMed for sponsoring Packy's piece. Justin Mayers, Callie, friends of the show. Thank you for supporting independent writers.
Yeah, and if you're gonna review a piece like a newsletter, like a Packy piece, like you should give credit to the advertiser.
Without them,
you can't just,
none of that's
you can't just
possible.
rip his quotes and pass it off as your own. You need to pass along the ad.
Thank you to TrueMed.
Yeah, thank you to TrueMed. Let's go to Matt Grimm. He asked me to fix something. He says it's insane. It's an insane market inefficiency that we can't buy nicotine packs at airport convenience shops. John Coogan, please fix. Thanks. And I wanted to talk about this because like a bunch of different things are changing in the tobacco industry, the nicotine industry. There's another viral tweet by Peter Hassan who says, "The war is over, fellas. Our pouches is safe. Our pouches are safe." And it's RFK holding a pack of pouches,
just locked in. And
he's going to be nominated to run the NHS, which I believe will oversee the FDA, and so he will have a pretty huge say in how those get approved. But it is very interesting, and a lot of people were asking me like, wait, like this seems obvious, like this is like people come to me all the time with ideas like, oh, you should sell this in grocery stores, you should sell this in
drone
retail
delivery.
I mean for the first couple of years when we were mostly online, people would always say, oh, you should sell this in retail stores. It's like, yeah, obviously, there's just a lot of hurdles to do that. But the hurdles for selling in airports are even more cumbersome. So they do sell nicotine products in duty free, and you don't pay taxes, but you have to be flying internationally.
And don't you have to? You can't necessarily open them up.
Yeah. Mostly you're buying cigarettes and you're buying large quantities, and it's basically because that's like an embassy and it's like an international waters.
We've tried to buy Dom during the duty free and open it in the store, and they don't let you open it in the store. It's really frustrating. Even they even sell glasses and don't let you open it in the store.
But with the Hudson News thing, or the airport stores, there's just this very interesting legacy where, so in order to be a retail store that sells nicotine products, even nicotine pouches that don't contain tobacco, you still need a tobacco retailer license. And so that's somewhat cumbersome. And if you look back at the history of tobacco products, there was never a product in the post-cigarette era, once they banned smoking on planes, that wasn't disruptive to the person next to you.
Yep.
So even if you could argue that it's like vaping on the plane is not going to like bring it down, although you could smoke on planes and they weren't falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
It was more like a health issue. But even if you could make the argument that vaping next to someone is like safe,
Yeah.
it's like annoying. And so they would never sell those because everyone would be like, why are you selling these? They're annoying. And same thing for smokeless tobacco. Like if you're chewing dip and spitting and the person has a dip cup or Gatorade bottle next to you, like that's just going to be kind of a nuisance.
I once was on a flight back from New York and had a woman aggressively vaping in JetBlue Mint.
Yeah.
And she was I was sitting up working as I do on flights.
Yep.
She was on the lie flat sleeping.
Yep.
Secretly smoking her little vape, and we ended up getting into this huge thing.
No way.
And she went to the
hostess
or whatever,
annoying me.
and kept saying, he keeps accusing me of vaping. I'm not. Will you talk to him about it? I'm not going to do this. But that I believe that flight was from New Jersey to LA actually. So that might explain things.
Yeah, totally. But so now obviously. Tobacco-free nicotine pouches are incredibly popular, and it does seem obvious. Like, why hasn't Philip Morris tried to put Zyn in Hudson News? And I was trying to dig into okay, what is the real reason? Well, a lot of it has to do with like the licensing. Like, you actually have to go get Hudson News new licenses. That takes a long time. Yep. I think this will happen, but it's going to require some like a very aggressive move. And the reason why I wanted to discuss this was I wanted to brainstorm with you. Like, if I make this my life's work to get Lucy, Excel, Breakers pouches into Hudson News, like, what playbook should I run? And I'm thinking, like, there needs to be a grassroots campaign. There needs to be memes. We need more guys like Matt who are taken seriously in the government and in the business world to be talking about it. But then I also need to be getting intros to the Hudson News CEO from like his whole network.
Yeah, probably listens to the show.
So give me a call if you do.
I would say one
but then
solution.
Also like, what else? Give me the whole kind of, Geordie marketing playbook to manifest this into reality. Because I was thinking like I should just put out a call on X, like, if you introduce me to Hudson News and we get a deal done, I'll buy you a Protect Philippe.
Yep, that's a good way to do it.
Because it's going to be so valuable.
And a lifetime supply of pouches.
Yes. So I will happily do that, because if we get the deal done, it'll be extremely valuable to me personally. But also, I think there will be a knock-on effect from being the first pouch in airports that will, even if we're not making a ton of money on the actual deal, I think we'll get press around it, and airport travelers will see it and be like, what is going on? Wow. Okay. This brand? Really? This brand?
Excel.
Exactly.
So give me the plan. I'm a pragmatic guy. An interim solution to this, we're going to be rolling out some Technology Brothers shirts, hats, various types of merch. So what I would say in the short term, once that goes live, all the Technology Brothers out there, if you can wear the TB branded product while you're traveling, it's a way to signal to other brothers that you are basically a mobile nicotine dispensary, right? Because I think, imagine anybody in our audience would be fine to share a pouch,
of course,
with another brother,
of course,
maybe even a few, right?
Of course,
a lot of guys, anytime two Technology Brothers are walking to the airport, one just closed, a 9-figure, licensing deal for their company. The other one is fresh off of like a pre-seed pitch, and maybe the pre-seed founder doesn't have a ton of pouches, but the guy that just closed a 9-figure deal did. And so if they can make a trade, right? Take my can, take a few. That's an interim solution, but I like the Patek giveaway. I think that kind of, I think we need to see more companies using luxury watches as bounties, to say, like, if somebody's hiring for a role and they're like, oh, if you find an engineer, we'll give you $5,000. It's like, I don't care about that. But if you're putting up even something of the same value, like a Cartier Santos, I'm going to be much more incentivized, right, to actually go and make that happen.
And it's more tangible, and it's like, but it does have liquidation value in the sense that, I got this referral fee, I got this thing, maybe I need the cash.
And a watch is a story, right?
But a watch has a story, and you could pass that down. You could keep it on, you could keep it forever. So I am very serious. I need to actually write that post and like canonize it.
That could be a product.
Because
that could be a
I've
software
gotten crazy
product.
intros before just by tweeting, oh, I would love to be in like this retail chain, and someone will be like, oh, I'm actually like brother-in-law with the founder or something.
Yeah.
So the serendipity engine on X is insane. So you heard it here first. We're going to put together a plan, and nicotine pouches will be sold in airports. Mark my words. But in other news, this podcast has been growing like wildfire. You hear it every time we introduce the show. We're the most profitable podcast in the world. That's been true since day one.
Yep.
But more recently, we've become the fastest growing podcast in the world.
That's right.
And that's really huge. So we need to celebrate that. We recently hit 1,000 followers on X. And
Major milestone.
Major milestone. And so we will be opening up a bottle of Dom Perignon to celebrate.
As we do. As we do.
Hopefully see it tilt down. Okay, and we're going to need to talk through this so that the listeners have something to pay attention to while I'm working on this, getting this open. So, do you drink a lot of champagne?
I drink champagne on occasion.
Yeah.
I try to. I find that if I'm drinking, it can sort of impede my nicotine and caffeine consumption. I'm not a big espresso martini guy, and so
I'm
usually
a
I
big
try to just
three
focus.
Martinis at lunch guy.
Yeah,
for working. If you're doing creative work.
Creative work,
you
yeah.
want to get the
or
juices
deals,
flowing.
or deals.
Yeah, or deals, or spreadsheets, or
like
coding.
if you're doing an IPO roadshow, you want to make sure that you're drinking early in the day. So yeah, this.
Hey, there we go. Okay. Cheers to 1,000 followers.
1,000.
To
Not
many more
every
bottles
day.
of Dom.
Many more. And we're going to be doing a bottle of Dom every 1,000 followers.
Every 1,000
forever.
followers forever. Yeah. Well, it only gets more from here.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe two bottles
at
of Dom.
10K, we might need to lever up and do 10 bottles.
10 bottles. Exactly.
And do our first 10-hour episode.
Our first 10-hour episode. That'd be fantastic. So the champagne is flowing. We're here to celebrate.
Hey,
Oh,
cheers.
Cheers.
To Technology Brothers.
The fastest growing podcast
Little
in
eye
the world.
contact. There you go.
There you go. Cheers. The fastest growing.
Delicious. This honestly tastes like Ramp. Have you ever
If
put your
Ramp was a champagne, it would be the Dom Perignon.
No, but literally, if
but
you
people,
touch
people say
a
that
Ramp
about
card-
Ramp. They always say it's like the Dom Perignon of B2B SaaS, right? That's like you see
common,
that all the time.
You see that flying around when people ask, "Oh, should I use Ramp or this other company?"
Yeah.
A lot of people say
It's the Dom Perignon of B2B SaaS. And so we also did a little celebration with the fans. We promised that to our 1,000th follower, we would give them one complimentary Blood Boy. And Cersei, Vocal Cry, was the winner. And so she will be receiving one complimentary Blood Boy. So we'll talk to you soon, Cersei. And thanks for supporting us. We really appreciate it. Let's go to some DMs. We got some questions from the fans. Let's go to the first one. Mickey with the Blicky says, Jordy Hayes, question for the pod. I filled out this form on an investing app and lied about my income and net worth. Then at the end, it asked me if I was accredited. I'm not. And I said yes. So now I'm verified to invest in pre-IPO companies. Can I get in trouble for that? What do you think?
Oof. Okay, so
I have a very quick solution for this.
Just
go to your boss and say you need $200,000 a year. Because as soon as you're making $200,000 a year, you are an accredited investor.
I thought it had to be for like the last taxable year, or is it?
I don't know.
Who knows? There's a lot of regulations
here. Just walk in and just demand it and say, look, I need to allocate capital. I need to create shareholder value. I need $200K, boss, or I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. And
you're gonna get it.
And then if your boss says no, run your next job hunt and tell everybody before you submit your resume and say I need $200K regardless.
Because I will be angel investing 90% of my
or go apply for roles that have $500K base comp and tell them I only need $200K.
There you go.
I'm going to outwork anybody
and
I'll
that
save
strategy.
you $300K a year.
This is good.
Suddenly, boom. Yeah.
And then sleep in a shed and invest the $190K.
Yeah, exactly. Move in with your parents and focus on capital deployment, right?
Exactly.
No, so I remember being in Mickey's shoes when I was a young man.
Yep.
Getting angel investment opportunities here and there. There's a lot of lack of clarity around these things. some founders care, some founders don't. A lot of more seriously run companies sort of will. I don't see a lot of formal accreditation checks. I write most of my checks out of a fund now, so it's not as much of a thing. But yeah, here's the thing. It's actually much less of an issue for the individual. I don't think Mickey's going to get in trouble for doing this. It really comes down to the company. So if Mickey is on a platform deploying money and
they can kick you off.
Of course they could kick you off. I imagine if Mickey's not using an alt, he will after this podcast goes live. Hopefully,
we might have
just burned your angel investing career. But the bigger issue is
it sounds like he actually hasn't made an investment though, and I think that's where the securities laws come into. It's not. No, but it's probably not illegal to sign up. It's probably a securities issue if you actually do the deal.
Yeah. No, the bigger issue is for the company and the platform. If Mickey makes a bunch of investments that are very risky and they go to zero, and Mickey and other people that were non-accredited say, "Hey, I wasn't accredited.
The check wasn't serious.
They marketed these, investments to me." And the main thing, Mickey, angel investing is very, very high risk. You will not get your money back for 5 to 10 years. Maybe nothing at all. Could go to zero. It is one of the silliest investment activities of all time. It pays if you're good at it. But what I would say is whenever you are, officially accredited or in your current state, start small. Don't, invest all of your liquid assets too quickly, because then you'll start seeing better deals in 6 months and you won't have any money to put to work. So
good luck out there.
Good luck.
Let's go to another DM we received. Hi, John and Jordy. I've been investing at a large growth equity VC arm of a crossover fund, and I'd love to move to one of the Holy Trinity firms. Can you give me a little insight as to how they differ culturally?
So he's talking Holy about Trinity.
Kleiner, Sequoia, and Founders Fund.
Legacy.
I mean, fantastic firms. I mean, obviously, I'm super biased here, so I can't really comment that much, but I can tell a little bit culturally. I mean, Founders Fund, everyone knows it's like kind of the pirate ship of the three. It's a little bit crazier, a little bit
weirder.
Yeah, weirder, and like it's always been very freewheeling in terms of like the press strategy. Like you have on one end like Peter writing a book that sits in airports and is like universally recognized as like a great business book.
The foundation of this podcast.
Yeah. And then you have like Delian just like being a madman on Twitter and just like posting all sorts of crazy stuff.
Mike too.
And Mike and just like both of those are acceptable, and that's very
the other
thing,
cultural thing at Founders Fund, and I think the reason that founders gravitate to them quite often is the entrepreneurial nature of the partners. So many of the partners have a fast-growing venture-backed startup that they're also doing.
Ton of incubations. Peter with Palantir, Trey with Anduril, Varda, and there's going to be more. So it's just a very entrepreneurial firm. No matter where you sit in the organization, there's everyone. Like you're never going to get like, here's your task list for this week. And at specifically at a growth, partnership. If this guy's at a growth equity, like crossover fund, there's probably like an element of like dialing for dollars. Have you seen this? Where, it's like, we need a price for every company. So we got to get in touch with like every single IPO candidate, every single candidate that's late stage, just call all of them, get the data, just pound and pound and pound. And Founders Fund's much more like whatever your strategy is, we're cool with that.
It's not a consensus partnership either, right?
So let's move on to Sequoia. I mean, Sequoia obviously like long-term rival. Can't say too many nice things about them, but we've talked about this before. We love Sean McGuire and what he's doing to pivot that brand to
Dark Sequoia.
It's essentially Dark Sequoia. Like, Elon has done the Dark MAGA thing, and Sean has brought a very unique energy to Sequoia that
kind of bucks historical trends.
I mean, literally everyone thought he was going to get fired for what he's doing because it's so bold. And there's been even articles about like the pushback that he's got on like, hey, maybe are you too aggressive on some of these positions? But he's fought the war internally, and it seems like he's won, which is amazing because fundamentally, like,
you have
all these intra VC rivalries, like, I don't care about as much as what the VCs are doing building technology for
firms.
America versus our enemies abroad.
Yeah. The other thing you have to imagine, Sean has a bit of leverage given his close relationship with Elon, who's creating the new deep state.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. And then you go back, I mean, like, I love some of the Founders Fund's, legacy investments, the story of Palantir, the early Zuck deals.
Pretty much crushed your champagne. Nice work.
Yeah. Like the early Zuck deal is legendary, Airbnb and Stripe, but like Sequoia is just in a different tier when it comes to the legacy stuff, like NVIDIA, Google.
Isn't it?
Right?
Isn't it
like,
4 out of the $5 trillion companies
are covered by the Holy Trinity?
I
Everything
think
but
Sequoia did. Maybe they did.
They didn't do Facebook,
Apple, NVIDIA,
and they didn't do Microsoft. But because Microsoft didn't really raise. But Apple, NVIDIA, Google, and then Kleiner. You go back even further, and you have a whole other tier of like amazing legacy. And
it's almost like a Vacheron.
It's exactly like Vacheron. It's like underrated now, but has like an incredible historical legacy. And of course, there's like the talent wars of the Holy Trinity that people talk about a lot right now, where Everett Randall moves over to Kleiner. He brings Lee Marie Braswell from Founders Fund.
Keith goes to Khosla.
There's a lot of like trade deals going on right now. But I remain extremely bullish on Sean and extremely bullish on Ev. I think Ev is
we're just bullish on
dude.
Risk, right?
Exactly.
Anybody that's taking risk, we're excited for you.
Yeah,
we're happy for you.
And so to answer the question of like where you fit in, you need to understand like, okay, what is your strategy and how much are you want to push things culturally? How many systems do you want in place? How entrepreneurial is your deal making process? And I think that's kind of you go into a Kleiner. There's going to be a larger staff. There's going to be more support infrastructure,
and to
that's
be clear,
going to be. And some people are going to flourish in that environment.
It is harder to break into the Holy Trinity than the MBA.
Yep.
Hands down.
Yep.
Right.
Just statistically.
Yeah.
So good luck out there. Start networking and start sending some of those firms good deals, because
start
that's
sending
how
us
you start.
deals.
Yeah, send us deals, and
happy to make a warm intro.
Yeah, we'll make some intros. Let's go to another DM we got. This is hilarious. When I first read it, I'm going to keep it anonymous, but someone DM'd me and said, "Where does Founders Fund keep its cash between investments?" And I love
Great
this.
Question.
I love this because it sounds like they're going to do a bank heist and they're going to try and steal the money that Founders Fund has. But it also is a very legitimate question in that I don't think a lot of people know. Obviously, most of our listeners know, but a lot of people don't know where VC firms actually do keep the cash, and just the mechanics of raising a fund. When you raise $1 billion fund, that doesn't sit in your bank account. That's just commitments from LPs, and then you make capital calls on a per investment basis. So the money might more like programmatically quarterly. Yeah, exactly. So like you're not necessarily just sitting on $1 billion in some money market fund. It's sitting with your LPs, and when you want to make an investment, you call the capital. It moves through your account very quickly, and you only have a few days there. And then there are also credit lines that allow you to pull things forward if you're off by a few days.
And the reason that is important is it increases the performance of the fund, right? So if you call $1 billion, if you have $1 billion fund, you call that capital on day one, but then you deploy it over 4 to 5 years. That's money that's just like sitting there, not really generating a return for your LPs. And so they would rather spread out those calls over time and be able to keep that capital in actively in the market in other investments or treasury, bonds or whatever.
Exactly. And this was a big thing during like the SVB crisis. A lot of firms were, they did have some money tied up, but it wasn't exactly a situation where the VCs were going to lose like all their money, because most of the funds that have been raised are invested just in liquid assets, because the LPs have fund money sitting
we should do
something.
At some point we should do a look back at the SVB crisis.
Because
I'm happy to provide my point of view of running a neobank at the time.
I was inside Founders Fund at the time, and we were getting accused of like causing it. It was the most insane thing. And our buddy who we mentioned before, Bryn Hobart, was the one who like deep dove SVB early and broke the story essentially that like their balance sheet was messed up. So we should do a whole thing. I've touched on it before in content, but we could easily do an hour on that. But now let's go to Brother of the Week. Each week we try and honor one technology brother who exemplifies what it means to drive innovation forward, to allocate capital efficiently, to live the lifestyle, to enjoy luxury goods, to be a capitalist and a consumerist, to be materialist.
Yeah.
And
Loud,
this week,
loud and proud opulence. Right?
Loud and proud opulence.
Yeah.
And so
and
this week was tough. It was a really tight race.
Yeah. Very tight. Yeah.
There were a lot of really solid candidates.
And this candidate,
kind of a cut above.
Cut above. And we'll start by saying that he is in the exclusive club, which is residents of the Venetian Isles in Miami. And this name might be new to some, but I don't think it will be new to many. He's somebody who has inspired a generation of investors and operators. He is a historian in his own right and also a capitalist, right?
Yeah.
He's somebody that has made a living, and a very good one at that, sort of telling these stories of the history's greatest entrepreneurs, handful of investors here and there. And he's somebody who less than 3 weeks ago we met with in Miami, and we talked to him about the podcast. At the time we were recording one day a week, and he said, you guys are not taking this seriously enough. You need to go home to California, go to your studio, and lock in. And we certainly have done that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be opening a bottle of champagne today, celebrating, a very large number, entering the four-figure club on X, and being not only the most profitable podcast on earth, but the fastest growing. So today's brother of the week, this week's brother of the week,
David Senra.
David Senra himself.
So congratulations, David. You will be receiving your Brother of the Week plaque in the mail soon.
Yes.
And we just wanted to highlight one particularly great David Senra post. He writes, Henry Ford and meetings. And it's a screenshot from some of his notes. He said, Ford didn't like meetings at all. Sometimes in the middle or at the beginning of one, he'd spring up as if he had to go to the bathroom or mumble that he'd forgotten to check on something, always giving the impression that he'd be right back. He never came back.
There you go.
I love that.
So in many ways, you have to imagine that Chesky and his recent tirade against meetings was inspired by Henry Ford, and he probably is a Founders podcast listener. So thank you to David for the encouragement and exemplifying what it means to be a technology brother.
Thank you, David. Let's move on to the timeline. And we will start with Lulu Maservi, one of my good friends. She writes, it's incredible that there's a ramp love fest on here every few weeks. Imagine how cracked the team has to be to organically build a fandom for a B2B SaaS finance product. And it's a screenshot of someone quote tweeting a question about should they go with ramp or someone else, and they say ramp by 100x margin. And it is incredible. But it's a testament. It's interesting because it's like the ramp fandom is, it's deliberate, but I don't believe it's ever been in a deck. I don't think they ever wrote, we need to build a fandom. They don't have to write about it. It's more just like the founders and the people that they associate with. The network is really great, and it includes David Senra. It includes Patrick O'Shaughnessy. And so
includes Lulu, right?
It includes Lulu. Yeah, exactly.
So Senra in Miami.
Yeah, so if you're you're following Lulu and you're like, I fuck with her. I like the stuff that she's putting out. Like, who else is she fuck with? Yeah. And it's Ramp, it's Cognition, it's Anduril. And so you're like, I'm in.
Here's the thing.
This is cool.
So a lot of people think to have a great brand, you need to spend a lot of money on a branding agency. And, we spent, multiple six figures on our, branding, Technology Brothers branding, which is still, rolling out. Not that you need to do that, but we felt it was important and more podcasts should do it. But here's the thing. A great brand is not the font that you choose. It's not your logo mark. It's not how pretty your website is or how many times people copy your website or how many times people copy your choice of color. A great brand is is what it stands for and how it makes people feel and something that people want to be associated with. So in the case of Ramp stands for operational excellence, right? And they came up in a time, they came onto the scene during the ZERP era. And so their position of actually, we're going to help you save money was very contrarian at the time. Everyone else was spend, check out all the rewards you can get. They were saying, no, we're actually going to give that money back to you, and we're going to help you spend less on your cards, even though that's not directly beneficial to us. At the same time, they have built a, is it a decacorn yet? Is it close?
Something around there.
Something close. Will be soon. They've done that in 5-year time horizon, which pretty much only Donald Trump has done in the last 5 years. So not only do they stand for operational excellence and help companies achieve that, but they have done that themselves, and they've set that example, right? And so they've created this halo effect around the brand that other companies want to be associated with. So now if you just incorporated your company on Stripe Atlas and you want to make a statement to your team about what your company stands for, you're going to use Ramp, right? It's how we're able to achieve our ridiculous profitability even at a small scale.
There's also something interesting about them kind of building almost like a non sequitur brand around the engineering excellence of the organization. Like, most people would be like, I don't even know if I need IMO gold medalists or IOI gold medalists to write my B2B SaaS software. Like, I'm good with like mid-tier programmers most of the time. They don't know that that's what they want, and they want like the real polish in their software, and they want the software to be an expression of like almost art.
And here's
but it's really stuck out. And the last company I know that did that was Google. Have you heard about Jeff Dean? You know this guy?
No.
He's like, he leads their AI, but he was like the most insane programmer during Google's rise, and there's like these arcane websites out there of Jeff Dean jokes, and they're basically like Chuck Norris jokes, and it's like Jeff Dean's keyboard only has 2 keys, 1 and 0, because he like programs in binary, or like, and then there's like 20 more jokes, and like you really need to understand computer science to get the joke. But they like, Jeff Dean was just this like insane phenomenon, and it really like set the culture at Google. And you could almost say the same thing. Like, people like, do you need, gold medalists to write B2B SaaS software? Well, do you need Jeff Dean to write search and ad software? Like, yes, you do actually, because there's a big opportunity and it's really important. So like, get the best.
Yeah. I had, having the opportunity to go to dinner with Lulu, Eric and Kareem from Ramp and in Miami a few weeks ago, and they invited one of their engineers who had actually was moving over to marketing. So one interesting thing about Ramp's organization is it's so engineering led that Ramp's CTO Kareem actually runs marketing, and they oftentimes are focused on recruiting engineers to their marketing team because they want to take an engineering led approach. And I can't comment on some of the things that they're doing in order to drive customer acquisition using that method, but they're a step above any other team, right? They didn't go recruit out of some big New York city like marketing agency, right? They're like engineering culture through and through. So
let's go to Josh Kaplan. He is posting a deep dive on the Gundo from the Blaze called Hard Text Main Street. It says, Augustus Dorico on the Gundo practice of office checks. If you're not in the office at 12:04 a.m. chugging white monsters and popping zins, you deserve to get your funding cut. And this is interesting because
great picture.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic picture. But I've always said that it's underrated that the Gundo guys beat the allegations of being too Twitter brained and too addicted to posting, and they very, very elegantly switched from just constantly posting and needing to do all the work themselves to get attention and media to the media comes to them now, and they just sit down. And I bet this got like a ton of reach. It's very valuable, very important for SEO, and it was probably like, a 1 hour lunch. And they took some photos.
High leverage.
And Augustus, it's very high leverage. Exactly. It's way easier.
And credit to them, they're some of the best posters of the generation.
Fantastic.
Right?
But they didn't get too into it where they were like,
no, they post way less than the AI people, the accelerationists.
For sure. They post way less.
They're averaging.
Yeah. And I think that's good because they're actually able to go and build something real and take time for the important things, and then they can still pop up and post, but it's very much like, shower thoughts. Like it's shower really thoughts. Like Slack time. Yeah. They're not sitting there being like, let me write a whole
segment for Augustus shower thoughts when his drones are flying raining down. Good. He has a second to
I mean, that's basically I mean, like obviously they need to
on that note,
they need to maintain attention. A
promoted post quickly. We wanted to shout out that Augustus is at Rainmaker, who was featured in that article, is hiring. Need more engineers. Okay. Please, sir, my tech development timelines are starving. So if you are an engineer, feel free to ping Augustus directly, apply for a job, or DM us, and we're happy to give you, our opinion on the company and working with Augustus, as he's a friend of the pod. So great opportunity for the right engineers out there, and make haste.
Yeah, I think it's rainmaker.com if you want to.
Makerain.com.
Makerain.com. There you go. If you want to learn more, we highly recommend it. I've made a whole video about the Gundo. There's a great Jason Carman video about Rainmaker. Plenty of ways to learn more and find out if a job at Rainmaker is right for you. Let's go to Blake Robbins. Great investor, just great guy all around. He says, the inevitable AI side hustle is to flood TikTok Reels and Shorts with AI-edited Subway Surfer video plus top Reddit posts plus text-to-speech. Is that inevitable, or is that like already happening?
It's already. I think it's already. I think
it's already happening. I
mean, Blake is a good example. Yeah. A lot of people say, "Oh, touch grass, get offline, go walk in the park." Blake's like, "No, I'm going to stay more online. Yeah. I'm going to take pitches while
he's
playing."
The investor I was pitching while playing video games with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. And I was asking him if
he's an example of, in our very online world, I would, anybody that tells you to get offline is maybe doesn't have your best interests at heart, because Blake is a fantastic investor and found some great companies over the years very early. But yeah, we've seen this. A lot of people are saying, you can make $10,000 a month making some AI influencers. Not sure about that, but the clipping strategy is very established as a way to, at least generate a lot of attention. Yeah. And you don't need to be particularly an expert in anything yourself to get great at clipping.
Yeah, and when we get into more of the VC trade deals, who's working where, who's moving from one firm to the other, we got to analyze Blake, because he was at Benchmark. They let him go, start another fund.
He was at that Detroit fund for a while.
Yeah. He's moved around a bunch, tons to analyze there. Would have been a top draft pick for me if I was running one of the major venture firms. But
Holy Trinity.
We'll see. We'll see how he ends up. I like that he has his own fund, though. He's master of his own destiny now.
Yep.
Santiago says, wait, did you just say Dutch East India Company? Dude, they were the OG venture capitalists. VCs today are soft herd animals. These dudes were hardcore. They'd be like, there's an island that produces something we want, and if we get it, we'll 30,000x our investment. And I guess that's him. With the OCV, which is the Dutch East India Trading Company logo on Rogan. Yeah. Which is funny, because this is the same as Aaron Slodov, right?
Aaron was talking about, cornering the nutmeg market. But it's funny to think about the Dutch East India Company looking at, a venture capitalist today is typically pretty happy with 100x, 200x. That's kind of the range where you start to go, okay, this was a good bet. And they probably looked at something like that being like, man, with the risks that we're taking on, like I need at least a 2000x.
Now it's even lower. Like a lot of the growth equity funds are just like 20% IRR deals, no zeros.
Yeah.
Like imagine, like it's a good strategy. Like it's worked. It's smart. It's rational. But
private equity model.
It doesn't feel like it's private equity. It doesn't feel like venture. Venture needs to be. There's a 90%. There's a 5% chance this is $1 trillion company. 90% chance it goes to zero. 5% chance the founder goes to jail, and I'm disgraced and I never work again.
That's the venture model. Company that practices. Friend of the pod, Justin Mayers. And Lee, the team over at Long Journey, they practice true venture today, where they will back a founder who's still working in some university on some like crazy project or a poster that's like the most absurd thing you've ever heard. And they take they're making these bets where they'll invest very small 6-figure checks at very reasonable valuations given the risk profile. And I'm extremely bullish on the strategy. It makes me feel like an idiot for entering companies at 15 post or 20 post.
I was talking to Lee the other day. He was the first investor in Crusoe.
Yeah.
Like fantastic company, crushing.
Yeah.
And also I was talking to Cyan about something. They invested in a diamond company.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Where's that on any market map?
Yeah.
But they were like, you
want to be investing off market
maps.
Yeah.
Off market maps for sure. I think the thesis was like, well, like lab grown diamonds are going to get cheaper. People will eventually switch over. But now it's like, oh, actually diamonds are important to like chip fabrication in some weird way.
Here's somebody, I texted a market map to my friend Amar the other day, and he goes, damn, that market map looks like the menu at a TGI Fridays. And I was like, that is a good example of like, if the market map looks like a TGI Fridays menu, probably it's pass.
Stay away.
Like, don't make your first bet.
Stay away.
Because the game is.
Well, stay tuned for the Technology Brothers market map. We will be mapping out every poster that we mention on the show, and we're very excited to drop our first market map. Let's go to Ken. He says by 2026 there will be 2 jobs: HVAC technician and YC founder. Everything else will be done by computers, and the HVAC technicians will have higher average annualized revenue.
So here's the thing. I had there's a guy I use for like random like handyman stuff around the house, and I were talking the other day. He's helping me with something, and he was like, dude, I've been taking these like engineering classes. I've been like learning to build websites, and I didn't try to dissuade him from doing that, because I think it's like, you should know how to build a website. You should know how to make an application, right? Like these sort of things are like basic skills, like replacing a screw in your house almost, right? You should know how to like paint a fence, maybe something like that. But I told him, I was like, look, every single person out of the last 400 people that I've texted could make a website today and ship it. Like a tiny fraction of those people like know how to properly like clean a gutter and maintain the gutter in a home, right? And an even smaller fraction are going to know how to like, service an HVAC unit. So I told him, I was like, look, you're already very skilled in these areas, and if you really productize what you're doing and get smart about building a team and marketing, I guarantee you that you already have momentum in this area. Like, you're going to be making more money than the average web developer in 3 years.
Yeah, it's like taste and like arcane knowledge that doesn't exist on the internet is like what's valuable. Like,
I've seen what I'm seeing in the creative market right now is the truly talented creatives that have incredible, impeccable taste and execution and have built great teams around them.
Ideas, guys.
Are busier than ever.
Yep.
Than the bottom half of the market, like the historical web developer. Like, I'm going to make $200K a year maintaining a website, like almost like blown out, like non-existent, like not a great career path anymore.
Not going to be an accredited investor for very long.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to be an accredited investor, do not become a website
commoditized web developer
maintainer.
Let's go to Trey Stevens, one of my colleagues at Founders Fund. Says, what do we want? An Anduril merch store. When do we want it? Now. And he is commemorating the launch of the Anduril merch store. Very cool CGI render. They're going to be dropping something. I don't think they've actually talked about what they are dropping, but I've heard it's a very unique and cool plan.
We'll have to do a live opening.
We'll have to do unboxing. I'll get
here's the thing. So the most hyped merch drops on X right now are Anduril and Palantir. But the issue is they both stand for very similar things. Right? So there's not a lot of like conflict. It's hard to really pick a side.
Yep.
We need a third player to come in the mix so that people can kind of like, there needs to be conflict. Otherwise there's no opportunity.
And I mean, I just imagine when I see a lot of Anduril and Palantir gear, it's a lot of t-shirts, it's a lot of sweatshirts. It says quiet luxury. It says, hey, I might have written a seed check in this company. Now it's worth $100 billion.
Yeah.
I'm wealthy. But that's not the future. The future is loud opulence. Loud opulence. You need to be screaming.
Yeah, so I think there's an opportunity for a defense tech firm to come out that's maybe competing with these guys and say, we're going loud.
Yes.
We support kipping pull-ups.
Gold-plated drones.
We support, Palantir has been very clear. They do not want you drinking or doing kipping pull-ups while wearing their merch.
Exactly.
And so that creates an opportunity for a maybe pro CrossFit, pro drinking.
Wait,
defense
they
company.
said no drinking in the gear?
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be a huge problem for us.
No more than 2 drinks.
No more than 2 drinks. Okay.
So
I
if
wonder
somebody
if we can get like a Dom Perignon
Yeah,
exception. I think that's essential.
No more than 5 bottles of
I mean, you're going to finish this bottle a day.
Yeah.
It's no problem. Come on. Let's go. Matt Turk says, business trip to Europe, 6:30 a.m. wake up, check phone, accept cookies. 9 a.m. I already see where this is going. I hadn't read this one. 9 a.m. meeting, use laptop, accept more cookies. 12 p.m. taxi to lunch, accept cookies? Yes. 4 p.m. checks news, accept cookies. 11 p.m. Netflix, but first cookies.
So
1 a.m. restroom, accept cookies.
This is a joke, but somebody ran the numbers and they said something like Europeans will spend billions of hours accepting cookies.
It's insane.
It's just like a constant onslaught.
It's so insane that there's no like opt out. This is like the worst thing. Like
Europe's going known for being known for great pastries to being known for lots of cookies.
Even Apple's doing this where it's just like every single app I have to say allow app to track or accept or deny. Like,
and you always do because you want to support advertising.
I literally do because I'd rather have targeted advertisements than non-targeted advertisements. Like I want to see an ad for a Patek Philippe. I don't want to see an ad for some Hublot. Like they should know me by now.
Yeah,
exactly. So very disappointing. Europe. I really hope we can push back against this in the United States because obviously I never go to Europe. I don't travel internationally.
For Apple, it was a brand thing. They realized that they had an opportunity to be the privacy big tech company, even though they know
put pressure on the
even
competitors.
Even though they know every single thing about us already, and it doesn't matter.
Big tech feels like being a user of big tech products, like when you're using Facebook or when you're using an iPhone, it feels like you have divorced parents. And it feels like Apple is actively in a fight with Meta. And it's like, I'm trying to log into my sunglasses. They work together.
Like, I'll drop the kids off.
Exactly.
And you pick them up.
And then they kind of bicker at each other. Like, oh, you want to use these Meta glasses? Like, well, are you sure you want to accept the terms? Do you want to do this? There's
like
20 different pop-ups.
You said you were going to pack lunch for the kids. And when I picked them up, they said that they didn't have any lunch.
Exactly.
What's going on?
It's so frustrating. And, I'm getting close to burn it all to the ground, but we'll let them keep going. The Apple company is not happy with me, but I'll keep using that shit. Let's go to Ashley Vance. He says, my exclusive today is the biggest investor in brain and longevity science that you've never heard of. James Fickle turned a crypto fortune into a research empire. I love this.
So
we need better elites. This is an example of better elites.
Is he sun gazing right now? I think he is. He looks like it. Based.
Yeah, there you go.
I sun gaze before the podcast.
Yeah. I try and like tease it in. I try and go for a run outside.
I don't raw dog it like some people that we know.
I try and run outside and catch some rays in the early morning. I mean, if you can get to the gym or to the whatever you're doing in the run and like the sun's coming up, nothing's more inspiring than that. Yeah, it's fantastic. But I don't know. Longevity and brain.
Yeah, honestly, we need more crazy money. I think a great journalist. She writes some great pieces, and I think that she is.
Hey, easy.
I'm just saying, certain journalists, are friends of the pod, adjacently friendly, and others are, less friendly. But no, I think Bloomberg has been making moves. Credit to them, right? They got Kate Clark. Last week, they've got Emily Chang.
Circuit.
Big momentum over
and a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's great.
Shout out to the journos.
Let's go to Nick Malinovic. He says dereg expectations are creating a lot of upward movement for public fintechs.
So I brought Nick up on the show before, talking about how his strategy. It's very dangerous as a VC to just pick a single category and just make that your entire identity and focus. And Nick's strategy to date has been to have smaller funds and make sure that he's actually generating real carry. Phenomenal investor. I think he's had a community and a media platform forever, and really has done a good job of making sure that I think anybody that is building in fintech that's worth backing is probably aware of him. at this point. And he kind of, as much as there was a crypto bear market, there was also a huge fintech bear market
in the
right?
public markets for
Look
sure.
at Dave.com.
Dave.com.
Trading at less than book value.
And it's up 40%.
Yeah, a bunch of others.
Wait, is this the last 7 days? Oh my God. Like I'm looking at this and it's like Sezzle's up 103%. And I think it's the last 7 days. Like I'm not sure, but like,
yeah,
that's
maybe
crazy.
Nick should open a Publix.
He needs to, start a hedge fund, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know a decent amount of these companies, but there's a ton on here. It's it's good to be back.
It's good to be
to be back. Matt Freed writes, I don't know. I feel like Waymo can solve most of their problems by adding just one additional seat.
So Waymo is counteracting
pillbox,
the bird
a turret on top.
You remember we've talked about the bird, how bird really suffered in LA because it became the new hot thing to throw a bird off of a 10-story skyscraper.
Yeah.
So we've seen Waymos get into similar situations where they're alone in a street and maybe a bunch of people decide to start doing donuts around the Waymo and maybe jumping on it and lighting it on fire. So anyways, I think Waymo would be smart to, I would look at potentially partnering with Anduril and getting some of their FPV drones that just sort of like follow the Waymo,
flock safety.
Protect it. Flock safety works, but I want like something kinetic, right? Like you need that kinetic potential.
Didn't they acquire some of the drone company? But it doesn't.
No, non-kinetic. Oh, okay. So no, Waymo needs suicide drones trailing it, and there needs to be laws to protect AI, right? Because I think humans are a bigger threat to AI right at this moment than AI is a threat to humans. So to make sure we don't piss the AI off too much, we should allow AI rights.
Yeah,
right? Self-defense is a important principle.
Yeah, I mean everything about the decision to start in San Francisco just feels better and better because it's like an extremely chaotic city. Where I mean they obviously did the pilot in Arizona, which was like a super safe, like super wide open streets, like always like dry, no hills. So and then once they got that going, they went straight to the hardest mode, like level 1000, going into San Francisco, like crazy streets, tons of pedestrians, like shoddy streets, like all sorts of weather, fog, and also people that will vandalize you. So if they can solve that, it's going to be a breeze to go to Chicago or LA.
Here's going to be the big unlock for Waymo. So when Waymo, instead of doing Uber Black, because all Waymo cars are like clean and fairly spacious and it's nice inside, so maybe black doesn't matter, but they should have a Waymo Turbo S functionality, right? Where you can call a 992 Turbo S and just say like, hey, look, drive however you want, but just try to keep it 15 over the speed limit, which is maybe like where police aren't going to bother you, but just stay under that and let me really enjoy the car while I'm in it, right?
I like that.
So Waymo, please roll out Turbo S's. We will pilot them around Los Angeles.
Yeah, this is correct. Elon says, use Grok for answers that are based on up-to-date info. ChatGPT has no idea on whom Donald Trump has assigned new responsibility of enforcing our borders. Grok is real-time. ChatGPT is outdated. Interesting. I mean, there is something great about Grok being integrated with the timeline. I love that. Yeah. But I actually haven't used it that much. I've used it for a couple like generative images because I feel like it's a lot less restrained there. So if you want to do something fun for like a kid and you want to do like, oh, it's going to be Mickey Mouse and Paw Patrol together. Boom, go to Grok.
Yeah,
I haven't been going for just like the news, the default LLM. It's not in my home row in that way.
Yeah, I think we should go on record and say that we support AI. We are excited about all the foundation models, but we are excited about ways that these foundation models can differentiate, right? And this is one of them. Not only does XAI have sort of an interesting distribution hack through X, but they certainly have found ways to resonate with a broader audience outside of the college students that are using ChatGPT to solve their homework problem or write an essay for them.
Yeah, that's great. So got to mix that in more. I use Perplexity. I use ChatGPT. Claude every once in a while.
Really?
I kind of go back and forth on it. I kind of subscribe and unsubscribe. Because every once in a while you see the meme of like, oh, Claude's doing really well. Like the responses are really good. And it has been good, but the UI, honestly, isn't as great for me. So I back off. But I think if you're programming, Claude has become like the default integration for Cursor. So yeah, I think, we could be seeing some bifurcation, some specialization. Well, let's go to the other AI founder. Sam Altman says, more generally, I am feeling good about a bright future for cryptocurrency. Here we go.
Risk on.
Risk on. Yeah, this is one of the interesting things. Like, a lot of the AI people have been very, very bearish on crypto because they see it as this like zero-sum rivalry. Like either the VCs are in AI or crypto. They're going back and forth. And that's somewhat true. Same thing with talent. Like developing for crypto is hard. Developing for AI is hard. Yeah. So you need the best talent. You need the best talent. You don't want to be sucked away by some person that's like, oh, I'm getting so rich working at a crypto company. But it's good that he has this perspective at the top end of saying this isn't zero sum. We actually probably need both. Especially as we go to like, more global payments, the stable coins, the prediction markets, the speculation, the digital gold.
Yeah, I think part of it is there's real competition in the capital markets for there's sometimes the capital feels infinite, which is an incredible feeling, but more often than not, these bigger allocators are looking at, all right, we should be deploying into crypto this year. We should be deploying into AI this year. And both industries in a perfect world would want to take all of that, right? Yep. And so, but we've talked about this before with Sam. One of the I honestly haven't followed WorldCoin closely enough. It does feel like they're building some pretty crazy momentum from like a talent standpoint.
I've been super bullish on WorldCoin from day one, just because Sam's involved.
Yeah, and you've said like Sam just makes money. Yes. Period. So.
Let's go to the bear case for crypto currently, or maybe just some cautious optimism from Robert Leshner. He says, a cheat sheet of things that could blow up at 200K BTC, crazy volatility. Spot exchanges missing coins. I think that's like maybe like a Robinhood thing. Is that what spot exchange missing coins mean? Like if you're trading like essentially synthetic Bitcoin and you don't actually necessarily own the underlying asset. Derivative exchanges, miners that overwrote call options, DeFi borrowing markets, hedge funds, high leverage traders, including you, plan accordingly.
It's funny.
It's all the lessons from the last bubble, basically.
I first heard that as miners, as in like people under the
young
age
people.
of 18.
I mean, so many literal miners were huge in crypto, especially NFTs, especially in the ICOs. Like lots of young kids.
Can you imagine the NFT boom during like if you were in middle school and you had like a crypto wallet?
And you get like $100 and you run it up to
but the thing that's interesting about here is people always think about like systemic risk in crypto as being prices dropping a ton, but the meteoric rise, and I think this is a great call out, I think I've talked to Robert like one time years ago, but like very early and with crypto, but yeah, people aren't sort of prepared for the systemic risk that comes from just the market cap of crypto potentially doubling in the next few months, right?
Do we have any more promoted posts today?
Good question. Actually, on the note of
financial
crypto,
markets,
we have a promoted post from BlackRock. BlackRock says, our chairman and CEO, Larry Fink, highlights in a recent Wall Street Journal op-ed, which we love, that the most realistic path to reducing America's debt burden is through growth. He discusses the opportunity for U.S. capital markets to drive growth by building #infrastructure, particularly in data centers, and #AI technology. Larry says any realistic path out of debt has to rely mainly on growth. We need to increase the size of our economy so that what we owe becomes smaller relative to what we make. So incredible. We should consider printing this out and just kind of putting it on the wall because it's worth coming back to. But
hey, this is fascinating. I heard this interesting take from Ben Thompson that that if you're a government and you're in debt, there are two ways out of it. One is to kind of unstagnate yourself and bring about economic growth, which is what Larry is arguing for, which I strongly support. It's a very hard problem. There's a piece of deregulation, there's a piece of innovation, there's a whole bunch of things that need to go right to actually get GDP above 2% to like the 3, 4, 5% range. That would be real
we've talked about this on the podcast.
Growth.
Going from 2% annual GDP growth to 4% would solve like pretty much all of our
everything.
problems.
Exactly.
And so
But the other way that governments are tempted to solve a debt crisis is always inflation.
Yeah.
But democracy has this like built-in kind of escape valve for inflation, because inflation hurts the average voter, the average consumer so much.
Yep.
Because even though right now like inflation has declined, that's the rate of inflation. The prices didn't go back to before the inflation.
Look at the tech.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are still hurting, even though the prices aren't going up anymore. They're still high relative to what people perceive you know, a banana should cost or a gallon of gasoline should cost. And so there's a lot of pressure, and most of the U.S. elections are like referendums on the economy, referendums on the right track, wrong track. How is the country doing? And so there's this, hopefully over time, there's this forcing function to like, do not inflate the debt away. Instead, let's focus on growth. Let's focus on
and going back to the Trump pump, the sort of virtuous cycle of saying, let's get government spending in control. Let's spend more efficiently. Let's spend in the right places. Let's accelerate, and let's focus on growing the economy, which I think is a core tenets of the new administration, regardless of your political beliefs. So.
Let's go to Buco Capital Bloke. He says, private company SaaS employees hearing that the IPO window is closed with markets at all-time highs, Dogecoin mooning, and Carvana up 800% year to date. And it's a picture of Shane Gillis from a great sketch
I think
with a gun in his mouth.
This guy's very sharp on SaaS broadly. I have no idea where he works or whatever, but he's clearly an insider within that world. And I think what he's actually speaking to is all of the, if you're in the top 20% private companies right now, every single one of those companies is looking at, we are going to go public within the next 2 years.
It just takes time. Like the IPO window is open. The window's just starting.
No, here's the issue though. There's thousands of other private unicorns
that are backlogged
that are that just don't have the traction or momentum.
Oh, okay.
And so he's talking about these employees that are maybe at the number 49 unicorn SaaS company who's like, we have 30 million of ARR, but we're only growing 40% a year. And so yes, the IPO window is closed for you, right? Just because you shouldn't probably go public.
That makes sense. I just think like generally they shouldn't be hearing the IPO window is closed in that scenario. They should be hearing the IPO window is about to open up in a big way. We aren't good enough. We need to double down. We need to grind. We need to we need to get it into gear, because this is the opportunity if they want to go public.
Or I think, some of those companies maybe they end up merging with others and creating enough revenue. And
let's go to Adam Singer with a related post. He says Dogecoin is up 170% in the last month, and it's a picture of someone throwing The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham in the trash.
That photo, I feel like is very Lindy over the last few years. Almost every single year you could use it in some capacity. Almost every single day or month.
I had a friend who bought Dogecoin right before the election.
Dogecoin.
I wonder if it's related to like literally like the DOGE, the Department of Government Industry, or
I think
efficiency.
It ends up. I mean, DOGE obviously has always traded to some degree based on Elon's attention towards it, right?
Which is hilarious because the founder like completely distanced himself from this. You know the history of Doge?
No.
So the founder of Dogecoin created it as a joke because he was anti-cryptocurrency and thought that all cryptocurrency was a scam and a fraud. And so he created the dumbest possible thing, dumbest possible token, Dogecoin, based on a stupid
he
dog.
Effectively kicked off
meme coins. It's the first meme coin. Yeah,
he's the reason that Pumped Up Fun has done like 200 million of net.
He created
revenue.
an entire industry, and he sold all his Doge, and he's been very against it. And he's put out these like long posts saying that like this is everything wrong.
Wiping his tears with $100
with $100 bills. I think he sold too early. I don't know. Maybe he still has some.
Did you hear about the best trade of the last week was a trader that turned $17 into about $3 million with Peanut.
I've never heard of Peanut, but I heard about this trade.
And that made me think meme coins are the new American lottery. For the terminally online, right? And anybody, like just that one trade will probably inspire $1 billion of new investment into meme coins, right? So anyways.
I mean, I remember during the last Dogecoin pump, there was this guy who was like the Dogecoin millionaire, and he was doing podcasts about how he put his life savings in Dogecoin, ran it up to a couple million. It completely tanked. He had like 10K, was broke, and then he was like, I'm not selling. So I hope he didn't sell any. I hope he's back up because we'd love to see that.
I want to put the word out that we're back up.
Let's go to Siki Chen, Blader. Is that how you pronounce it? We'll see.
Blader.
Next year feels like it will be the best year in the history in history to be in tech as a founder, employee, investor, anything. You got 1K likes. It has that vibe, right? Build in winter never felt so real and so good.
I love Siki. I've actually never met him in person,
Me
but
either.
just
He runs
interacted
Runway,
with him online. Runs Runway. He started that company. I think he was an
VR
early VP.
company?
Yeah, he started.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blank on the name of it, but it's the IRL
It's like
VR.
Playground VR or something?
No, not Playground.
Yeah, I forget what it
Ben,
is.
what's the name of the VR company that Siki started?
It's in
Help us out.
Yeah, it's
but they had a really tough
in-person.
time
It
in
was
COVID.
really cool.
But
Yeah,
they've
exactly,
come back
because
in
it was
a big way.
in-person VR experiences.
But now he's got
He
this
moved
amazing
over.
company called Runway
Yep.
that
I think Gary Tan's an
unfortunately-
investor.
Yeah, Gary invested in it, and Andreessen's in it.
Cool.
Anish, my friend over there, I think led one of their rounds. But Siki's always been just extremely, I would say, like tech positive.
Yep,
Right? He's obviously
totally.
and his company Runway is doing something really interesting. They're basically applying some of the same like kind of mechanics that you have in Figma to P&Ls and pro formas, and helping everybody at a company better understand the numbers in their business.
Yep. Do we have another promoted post?
Yep. This promoted post is from Cartier. They say, in steel, rose gold, or paved with diamonds, the tank Americane celebrates the casual chic spirit of a continent on American time. # Cartier tank. So anyways, if you are a technology brother and looking for a nice gift for a significant other, the Cartier tank is a great option.
Fantastic. It's a fantastic
certainly an
watch.
investment, but it's something that has stood the test of time.
Are you familiar with the history of the Cartier tank?
I don't know the tank. I know the Santos.
Oh yeah,
better.
no, the tank is like fabulous. So
Well, of course I know the tank.
Yeah, but it was worn by Jackie Kennedy.
Yep.
It was worn by Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
And Andy Warhol.
Yep.
And so it's this interesting blend where it is seen in some ways as like a feminine watch, but it's been worn by arguably like the most masculine guy in history, Muhammad Ali, and also this like interesting artist in Andy Warhol. And so it's cut across all of the cultural barriers in a really fascinating way, and it's just a really striking design. It's beautiful. The Tank American is a little bit more rectangular, a little bit more accented.
This one is,
but it's a fantastic watch, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's in the market. Well, and thanks to Cartier. Let's go to Mary Gunarate. Atne, she says, Genius Bar employees asked me what I do for work, and I didn't lie. We're so back. What does she do?
So Mary has a crypto protocol.
Okay.
I invested.
So the last couple of years were rough.
Yeah, her and her co-founder Luke have just weathered the absolute storm, focused on fundamentals and actually building products that their users love. They've iterated multiple times. They've stayed focused. I love the team over there.
They didn't
Mary's
listen to Jason
awesome.
Calacanis, who told them to pivot to AI.
Yeah, they had a lot of people like Jay Cal telling them pivot to AI, pivot to AI, pivot to defense tech. Refused. Anyways, brilliant team, and I'm happy to see that Mary's no longer embarrassed to say what she does for a living, because she is a phenomenal founder. And
cheers to Mary.
Cheers to Mary.
Potential future brother of the week.
Yep.
Let's go to Zach, the founder of Bridge. Sold his company to Stripe recently. He says, in the last week, I've heard that a dozen developers building with Bridge are raising rounds / have term sheets. It makes me so incredibly happy. We're entirely focused on empowering these builders. Supporting their success is all that matters.
So it's funny, when Bridge got acquired for $1.1 billion about a month ago, everybody was just like, oh, stable coins, Bridge, Stripe, that makes sense. I don't think it was talked about enough that Stripe likely made that acquisition because they saw that the brightest, most exciting companies building in stablecoins were using Bridge, which was exactly what Stripe built their entire business on, was making sure all the best new founders in the Bay Area were using Stripe. So anyways, people that felt like that was a crazy price to pay, or they were like, they only have 15 million of revenue, or they're paying this crazy multiple on revenue to acquire the business. Stripe was basically, I imagine, making a venture style bet into a company that they saw themselves in. So excited to see what comes out of developers building on Bridge. And
congrats to Zach again.
Yep.
Reggie James says the cost for lack of vision, a crowded market.
Yep.
Underrated tweet. 63 likes, deserves 6K.
Low TAM banger.
Banger. Really good point. Really good point. This is the
Yeah.
market map thing. If it's
Yeah.
on the market map,
So
you don't have the vision.
Here's an example. So WorldCoin
Yep.
clearly has vision. It's had a lot of critics over the years. Oh, why do you have this orb? Why are you scanning everybody's?
Literally vision.
Yeah. They're scanning eyeballs like all over the world. And in one of the world's most competitive industries where people will switch between products very rapidly, they'll cycle through multiple protocols in the same day, crossing across different L2s to L1s to L3s, not caring. They've carved out a lane and have a vision, and you could maybe argue that they don't have competition in what they're doing. Reggie's a very unique entrepreneur, and I think historically has always tried to do the same, right? Like have that unique point of view and focus.
Yeah, he also just always focuses on like taste and design and like these interesting things that always get forgotten by the core Silicon Valley folks.
The YC crowd.
Yeah, well, it's not just the YC crowd. It's like you can dismiss design and taste if you're just a developer and you only care about like what is the programmatic truth, what is the mathematical proof of this thing, and maybe design takes a backseat to that. Or if you're just the business guy and you're just like whatever makes money, maybe this taste thing or having good design or having a strong opinion or a vision that doesn't make sense this quarter. But Reggie has always been good about like looking further into the future, and I think that calls back to like an earlier era of Silicon Valley, which I really respect. Let's go to Gabby Goldberg. She says, the Hawk Tuah girl ships faster than most of us on this app. And it's a quote tweet of TechCrunch saying, the Hawk Tuah girl launches Pookie Tool, an AI-powered dating advice app, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And I love this. You had a good take about this because there's been a lot of doubt in AI recently.
Yeah.
But
my thing, I was happy to see she wasn't discouraged by the recent potentially scaling sort of wall within AI.
There's a lot of fear in AI.
She's just shipping, she's building. That's what everybody should basically be doing. You can't be afraid. You just got to ship. And there's
a lot of hate on rappers right now. There's a lot of, you shouldn't build a ChatGPT rapper. Well, what does she have? She has a cornered resource in her audience.
She's got attention.
Where, yes, who knows if this is that much better than just asking vanilla ChatGPT, but if she can drive people to this app, she can monetize that. She's effectively acting as like an affiliate of OpenAI. And sure, it's not going to be $1 trillion company. It's not going to disrupt OpenAI, but it's going to create a lot of value. And that's
here's
what matters.
A potential thing with the internet. So historically, people would have their 15 minutes of fame, right? Hawk Tuah girl.
You know her website?
No.
16 minutes.
16 minutes. That's great.
Fantastic. I saw that.
She's
really good.
She's smart. She clearly has a smart team around her. Actually, no, she does her podcast with Joey. Joey from
I know.
Better. But look, historically, you'd have your 15 minutes of fame, and then the traditional media would move on because you were no longer.
And you wouldn't have captured any of that audience.
You couldn't capture anything in that moment.
But she has millions
now
of followers
you can get
already.
15 minutes of fame, get your 5 million followers, however many it is, and then continue to monetize that and ship against it and iterate. And so I think that's underrated. More people should be trying to get their 15 minutes of fame, because it can actually convert into a very, very meaningful career for her. I'm sure she's having the time of her life. So
it seems great.
So classic American story of making a sex joke or having some sex-related video and then turning it into a career like the Kardashians.
Yep, fantastic. Let's go to Crispin Frank. He says, some are calling Elon the George Soros of the right. That's not really accurate. He's more like 44 George Soroses of the right, because Elon Musk has $320 billion and George Soros has 7.
Here's the thing.
Wow. Okay, put on the tinfoil hat. We're in the conspiracy zone. The scientists are out of the room. It's bro scientists now.
Yep.
Let's hear it.
Experts, take a step back. So here's the thing. I'm fully in favor of this. I like that we're rebuilding the deep state. We're making the deep state great again.
Great.
That said, I do have to imagine that George Soros, who has done some of the most heinous political acts in the history of the country, is the kind of billionaire that would want his sort of a net worth to be under projected, right?
The
real billionaire class is saying, I don't want to be on the Forbes list.
Yep.
If I have to be, put me down at this much.
Yep.
I don't want people to know that I have $200 billion. Like, I'd rather people just think that I'm like, a brokey billionaire with, $7 billion.
Sure.
Like, he, at a certain point, once you're a billionaire, like any sort of adding numbers to it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
You're a binaire.
And
Like, people are
Soros
gonna
is
treat you
harder
in
to
that.
clock because it's all in this fund and stuff. It's not like
Yeah.
with Elon, it's very easy to just say, okay, he owns 20% of this big company.
And I have
Do
to
the math.
imagine he's very pro taxation,
Yep.
just across the board. You have to imagine that he does some creative things with his accounts, including offshore activity that
Yep.
would mitigate that. So shout out to the new Soros, Elon Musk.
Fantastic. Let's go to Zeke at Zeked Up. He says, I can't wait to pump my system full of niche tech Twitter influencer John Coogan's proprietary lock-in chemicals. And then he quote tweets and says,
XL.
my mom told me not to smoke cigarettes. She didn't say shit about online chewy chemical brain boost pouches sold by a handsome conservative investor with a podcast about combining technology and frat bros.
Incredible. Put it on the wall.
Frame it right now.
Frame it.
I don't even think I could reply to this because I didn't
No,
even
it
know
needs
where
no
to
reply.
I didn't know where to start. It was just like
Zeke's
thumbs up. I
Wait,
guess.
when we
I love this
posted
guy,
about
though.
the Blood Boy giveaway, somebody said,
Oh yeah, Zeke is
and
R.I.P.
then
He's
they
going to be the
tagged
Blood
him,
Boy.
so
I don't know.
Zeke.
Does he have Blood Boy physiognomy or something?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do kind of a deeper analysis there.
Okay, yeah.
But before we get into the next,
yeah,
tweet,
we got a promoted post. Let's go.
Promoted post from Langchain. We asked, you answered. Our State of AI Agents report is here. We surveyed 1,300 industry professionals from developers to business leaders on how they're using AI agents today, and the results are in. What are the top use cases for agents? What the biggest challenges when building agents? Who's finding success after deploying their agents to production? Go to langchain.com/state of AI agents to get the full report. And thank you to Langchain.
Yeah, thank you to Langchain. Let's go to Gabby Goldberg. She says, coffee
Gabby
shops.
again.
Yeah, Gabby's in here twice. She's crushing it this week. Coffee shops opening at 10 a.m. is the sign of a crumbling society.
That's always been my issue with New York.
Yep.
You ever go to New York and you wake up?
I thought it was the city that never sleeps. You can always get a coffee and
No,
pizza.
seriously, I'll wake up in New York. I gotta wait like 3 hours.
What?
3?
Is that real?
Yeah, their
had no
coffee
idea.
shops open up super late.
Weird.
You gotta find like these random.
I feel like in LA, like Starbucks opens at 6. Like
that's the
every
thing.
single
Everybody's like, "Oh, the city that never sleeps." No, New Yorkers are
Really?
not getting coffee at 6 a.m.
Interesting.
Maybe it's because the people that are actually getting up at 6 a.m. are just getting coffee at their office.
Or they're
but,
doing cocaine.
That's always been my frustration with New York.
Yeah.
New York's got to get it together. It literally is hurting the economy that people can't get more cups of Joe around the city at earlier hours. So
Yep.
figure it out.
Let's go to Gary Tan. This is great because we see the follow back icon. That means he already follows us, but this is the first time on the show because we haven't followed him. After we post, we're going to follow him,
Yep.
and then he will be an honorary technology brother.
Yep.
Potential brother of the week, maybe.
Yeah, he might deserve brother of the week for the recent SF election. And
I
and
mean,
it's sort
so
of
many
accelerating.
wins with this guy. It's just
Yeah.
W's every single week. It's going to be hard. He's going to be in the running a lot. I can feel it.
Yeah. Many plaques on the
So
way.
Gary says, design for super early startups seems like it has become increasingly a lost art. This is kind of what Reggie was talking about. Great, simple UX that has clear call to actions, obvious nav, good use of contrast, and no distracting ornamentation, sadly waning. How you do anything is how you do everything. What a great post. And,
Yep.
and it makes sense because Gary's a designer. Like, he designed the Palantir logo. You know this?
I did not
It's
know that.
crazy. Yeah,
That's
he was
wild.
like one of the earliest employees at
Did
Palantir.
he do Coinbase's
Designed the
logo
logo.
too?
I don't know if he did Coinbase's logo, but I mean, Coinbase was in my YC batch, summer 12. Gary was around there. I'm sure he's super close with them. And then I
Yeah.
think Initialize did like one of the major rounds or something. Made a ton of money on that.
Wait, so you were in Coinbase?
With Brian.
So how much did you invest?
I didn't have any money.
We're gonna have to cut. We're gonna have to cut this out of the show.
But you know what was crazy in our YC badge?
Yeah.
The referral bonus for going on Coinbase at the time was 1 Bitcoin.
That's wild.
It was like,
Amazing.
dude, if you sign up, I'll give you $5 in the form of 1 Bitcoin.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Rough.
I would say like small example here is the reason that more startup. There's no excuse not to have great design as
Yep.
an early stage company. Is all it takes is one person with good taste.
Yes.
And even one person with a freelancer that has good taste.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's all it takes,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't. You simply have to care about it a tiny little bit,
Yep.
and you can make it happen.
Yep.
and more people just like hire the designer that they know, or they go online and
or
they ask
the one
for
who's like really hot and has already like there's this weird like trend where, you know, there's someone who has a lot of taste, and then they start scaling their operation and they start delegating, and you're still paying $300,000 for like B tier, C tier talent, because the real tastemaker is working with like the Fortune 500 clients now, and you're out of the game.
And I you know, Party Round had great design early because the first hire that we made was Brandon Jacoby. He was the first person to join the team. He had been at Cash App for 4 years. He was still like 23, 24 at the time. So it wasn't like we had, you know, it wasn't like he was like, no, I need to make $350K a year base. So I think that investors should be extremely judgmental of companies that have poor design, because it's basically, you should figure out a way to get it done for almost $0.
I agree.
And then all it takes from that point on is hiring one person who's a great designer, and you should be able to attract that person. Otherwise, you're not compelling as a founder, or if you don't care about design, great designers will not want to join your company.
I agree. Bifrost Orbital says the youngest teenagers to have built satellites at the age of 16 have made it to Y Combinator. Onkar, CEO, now 19, and Geffen, CTO, now 23.
So
you said you wanted to like
incredible accomplishment.
Yes, congrats on YC.
And pretty good traction on this post. That said, I wanted to invite these guys to send us a note, and we will help you learn to post, because
this could have been way more viral if it was from the actual founder's account, and it was a deep dive into. Tell me more.
Not in the third person.
Yeah. Tell me more. Like, what were you doing at 16?
I would want to
show me a picture of the satellite that you built.
I'd want to see like first line. We built our first satellite at 16.
Now we're in YC. Here's the story. Boom. Exactly.
So, anyways, we don't do this often, but
pro bono consulting.
Pro bono consulting will help you guys learn.
This
the
will
algo,
pop for sure.
And I imagine these guys, you know, within the next 10 years, will get Brother of the Week.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. So hit us up. We will help you. Thanks. Moving on. Dennis says a GPT wrapper of ChatGPT itself makes $5 million a month.
And you know
that is crazy.
There was a time where you could search ChatGPT in the App Store and not
get
find
crazy
the
stuff
OpenAI app because it was all just like iterations on the name, like the same exact name, like copies. A bunch of trademarks.
That's why they bought Chat.com.
And OpenAI doesn't actually have to do anything really, because they're all just paying OpenAI.
It's all just front end for them.
I would say like a lot of that revenue is probably just going back to OpenAI.
I do wonder what the margins are on this. Like, are they able to mark it up enough and kind of fool enough people?
I'm sure
it's a
they're
very
making
cynical.
Money,
it's a very cynical job.
You only need one, probably 2 engineers to build that product.
The one thing that I really hope is that I hope this is a kid. I hope this is some really, really young founder who will learn from this and wind up, you know, making some money, putting something away, and then winding up and going and doing something much more ambitious soon. Because just seeing 5 million a month show up in your Stripe account, moving it around, hiring people, stuff like that.
We're going to claim credit for this. 10 years ago, it was trading sneakers was like the hustler thing. Today
now
it's a ChatGPT wrapper.
For sure. The Riz app, all these different things like you know, tarot card readers.
I want to see the
charts.
Rizzler drop a
Hawk 2 girl.
I want to see
she's gonna build something real.
Brianna, the chicken fry girl, do a chat app that you can talk to abusive Zach Bryan on.
Wow,
that would do some numbers.
Here we go. Do we have another promoted post?
Yep, this one is from Akash, who is over at Ramp. He says the TriRamp and web engineering team is hiring. Let's cook. And he chose this tweet because
this is a promoted post specifically for Ramp as an employer, place to go work. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're an engineer, go check out the jobs they have.
Is there a link?
And the reason that we chose this one is that Adam over at RepView
this is good.
Ranked a bunch of potential 2025 IPO candidates, and Wiz was just a hair above Ramp. Ramp was almost the number one IPO candidate.
Oh, by 0.07. Wow.
Yeah. So very. We would honestly we kind of need to let the experts dig in.
I think we need to put that in the truth zone.
We're gonna have to put this in the truth zone.
Yeah.
But go DM Akash if you're interested in joining Ramp, or apply on Ramp's Ashby job board.
Yeah. Dream job. Let's go to Sharif Shareem. He says, nobody gives a damn about your roadmaps or strategy decks. Just show them a demo so insanely great it feels like you stole it from 5 years in the future. 1K likes. I love that. I agree. I am pro roadmap and I'm pro deck. I don't know about pro strategy deck.
Decks are the funniest
you don't
thing
need to necessarily show them to people other than, investors need to see a deck. But I think there's still something valuable
That's the
about
thing, though.
writing a memo.
Investors don't need to see a deck if you have a banger demo and
Sure.
you are super compelling.
Yep.
It helps if you're an insider. It helps if you speak the language.
Yep.
It helps if you've maybe interned at a venture fund or whatever it is. But build a phenomenal demo, get some users, show people that you can ship and ship quickly, and then still make a great deck because it'll help you get that, maybe 2x your valuation if you do it right.
Yep. Michael Miraflor says the Patek Philippe Generations campaign, obviously we're a big fan of this here, has been running for years and years now. One of the best of all time, in my honest opinion, and I couldn't agree more. It's the famous tagline, you probably know this, you never actually own a Patek Philippe, you merely look after it for the next generation. And it's a side-by-side of an old ad and a new ad, and it's essentially the same campaign. And it really speaks to the value of like getting your marketing message correct early, building that brand essence, something that you can live and die by for generations. I remember talking to the guy who did Warby Parker's early brand development, and he said that Warby Parker, they landed on this idea of, quote, the literary life. Are you familiar with this? So you've never seen it in a Warby Parker ad. It's never been on a billboard. It's not a catchphrase that they use anywhere on their website. It's merely just the brand essence that they keep in mind when they're doing other stuff. What is Warby Parker? It's the literary life. So that answers the question of what do their pop-up shops look like? They look like libraries because that's the literary life. What does the website look like? Well, it looks bookish. It looks like something that, someone who reads in a coffee shop would enjoy. What about the colors, the tones, the music, the fonts? Everything comes from that essence, and getting that right early is just like once the arrow has left the bow, it just sails. And so Patek Philippe is a fantastic representation of that. And even though it's a watch brand, you can apply that to your tech startup. Absolutely. Absolutely. We see it with Ramp. Let's go to Die Workwear, Derek Guy. He says, I'm going to jail because Donald Trump has nominated Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General for the United States. And
so these guys have an amazing history.
Yes.
Basically, Derek creates a lot of beef with powerful people because powerful people tend to wear suits.
Yes.
And Derek has a lot of opinions and knowledge about suits. I'm sure when he sees this video, hopefully we don't get dunked on too hard. Derek, if you're watching this,
go easy.
You can dunk, but then give us some pointers in the DMs. All right. But anyways, Derek has historically, called out Matt for having some absolutely horrendous fits over the years, like truly some like worst fit ever worn in the White House type stuff. No. And so that created some beef.
Okay.
And this new administration is ambitious, right? There's a lot of people in Washington and some posters that have been living out that are a little bit worried.
Yeah.
Right?
Could be rough, but we stand with posters generally. So as long as he doesn't go to Blue Sky or Threads, as long as Derek, you stay on X, you're safe. You're one of the good ones.
Strong.
Let's go to Kalshi. There's a bunch of drama. Rajveer says the Kalshi founder has to be trying to get himself arrested right now.
It's just an attention game.
Because Shane got his phone raided by the FBI. We support Shane. We support Polymarket here. And then Sarah says a leaked email shows Kelsey, growth executive, tried to plant a news story containing false claims about wash trading and money laundering on Polymarket. Kelsey appears to be spreading misinformation about Poly behind the scenes, and it is a crazy time.
If that is a real,
I don't know if this is true. I'm not.
If that's a real email, I don't think we can. We're not journalists, so we're not. We're experts.
Yeah,
and we do
in
have
many
a segment
things,
called
but not
the Truth
journalism.
Zone, but we're not journalists.
Yeah.
We're not fact checkers.
But it is crazy how hot the fight between the prediction markets is. I mean, it feels like Uber and Lyft right now, where if you're not in Polymarket, you got to get into Kelsey.
Yeah, and Raj's
big
battle it out.
Is it going to be a power law winner? Is it going to be more oligopolistic? Like people don't really know, so they're testing the waters.
In many ways, the Kalshi versus Polymarket thing was a political battle of platforms, right? Polymarket stands for many of the principles that the new administration is for. Kalshi is for regulation. They've gone after being like, we are the regulated prediction market. And in many ways, the campaign's tracked, right? So Kalshi was spending $1 million a day on Facebook just to get into the charts. Polymarket had a lot more organic adoption and organic media. So in many ways, there's parallels. Not surprised that the current administration is trying to come after Polymarket.
Indeed. Let's go to, do we have another promoted post?
Promoted post.
Okay, let's do it.
The New York Philharmonic.
Oh,
just
I love the New York Phil.
Sounds of the Season, a festive holiday matinee featuring New York Phil musicians conducted by Jeff Tizik on December 14th and 15th. So learn more and buy tickets at nyphil.org/sounds of the season. And I would say this could be something where we get the Technology Brothers community together. We all put on suits and let's go to the New York Phil together.
I mean, we are recording this like blocks from the LA Phil. I'm a huge Gustavo Dudamel fan. My dog is named Gustavo Dudamel.
Yeah.
Not a joke.
Not a joke.
I play
Got
classical
a pretty big
piano
Instagram
for 40.
account.
Yeah, he does. He's 20K. But yeah, I mean, I love classical music. It's a great way to. I find it just very meditative because you go and sit, listen to beautiful music. You're off your phone. It just clears your mind, and it's still an opportunity to dress up, meet interesting people. The class of
and immerse yourself in truly loud opulence, right?
Truly.
Music is opulent in many ways.
Yes, absolutely. And so, can't recommend the New York Philharmonic enough. Please, if you're in New York or you're stopping by, go buy tickets. And Google it, NYPhil, probably NewYorkPhilharmonic.com. And we're happy to support them on this show. Let's go to Michael Dubrovsky. He says that there's a beta testing opportunity. Hate pricking your finger, but love biomarkers. We launched a new product at SciFox, his company, and I need 5 people to beta test and provide feedback. Use the link in comments to get 50% off.
Wait, is this?
We got to try this. I mean, I think you can literally test your testosterone on an hourly, like a minute-to-minute basis.
Amazing.
Seems like a massive breakthrough.
Amazing.
And this Michael is the man who studied the testosterone levels of YC founders at his offsite, and so he's gone a step further. He's being proactive.
Okay, we need to talk to this guy.
We do.
We should get it. We should get this on our arm while we record and track our levels throughout the
pod.
Yep. Right?
Where does it spike? Is it during the ad
ready.
reads? Is it during the brother of the week? You know, there's a lot of different places where you need to be maxing out. I mean, that's a big part of why we record at 11 a.m. every day, because that's when your testosterone is peaking. Let's go to Eklot. Eklot says, if you're 20 to 30 and your main circle isn't discussing buying another country, terraforming, building a new city, lengthening winter days, creating rain, building a vast industrial base powered by nuclear, then it's time to find a new circle. Couldn't agree more. And I love
to say that our circle is all of those things.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is Praxis Dryden trying to buy Greenland. Terraforming, that's
Augustus.
Thomas Puero and Augustus. Creating rain, that's Augustus. Building a new city, there's a bunch of people in Prospera. Nuclear, we know a ton of nuclear people that are doing that. Doug Bernauer at Radiant just raised $100 million to do nuclear. It's fantastic. And then the industrial base obviously goes to Aaron Slodov and Chris Powers at Hadrian.
Thank you to the absolute brothers,
the boys,
for
the gang
doing your part.
Yeah, shout out to all of them.
Terraforms.
I wouldn't have my circle include
any other way.
It's fantastic. Do we have one last promoted post?
One last promoted post.
Let's
from
do it.
Daniel Mason, close friend, and Daniel says, we've received 5,574 job applications in 2 weeks. We've interviewed 4 people. Why? We're looking for a very specific kind of engineer, the kind who makes everyone else uncomfortable, which I like that, right? Oftentimes, 10Xers kind of freak everybody out a little bit. They're like, maybe their keyboard just has a 1 and a 0 on it. And they're
there
just
you go.
going,
Yep. Makes sense.
Anyway, so Daniel says, know someone, my DMs are open. So go to @DGMason on X if you're interested. And there's more context on the role on his profile.
Mm-hmm. Go check it out, and we're happy to promote that on this show. Let's close out with ex-gamers make great entrepreneurs, a post from Tom Beanham. We're used to locking in for fucking 13 hours straight sometimes, LMFAO. Couldn't agree more. Many cases, and we've talked about this before, but very interesting correlation between the great gamers, Elon, one of the greatest Diablo players of all time, SBF, one of the worst League of Legends players of all time.
And look what happened to their companies.
Clearly wasn't taking it seriously, wasn't locked in, was a fake gamer, which is
and
the worst thing you can possibly do.
The key is to figure out a way to find that early love for video games that many of us had and apply it to Excel, right? Like
yes.
you and I were up until, probably 3:30 last night
yes.
in the Technology Brothers model.
Yes.
Like just tweaking.
Making sure the profit was maximized.
Yeah. And in many ways, like it felt like being in a COD lobby. It felt like playing StarCraft 2, right?
Couldn't agree more.
Those early days. So apply that same zealous for the game to the game of business and become a student and player of capitalism.
Yes, become a student of capitalism, a player of capitalism. And that's our show. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, give us 5 stars, repost everything that we deliver on X.
Start clipping us.
Start clipping us. Become an Andrew Tate disciple for this show.
Yeah.
Take our content, amplify it however you want.
I want to do a small challenge. If you're a college student listening to this show, figure out how to make $10,000 a month clipping our content and posting it.
Yes.
We will support you in that.
Yes.
And we'll probably try to hire you after you do it. So
fantastic.
That's a challenge for today.
And cheers.
Cheers to
Let's
1K.
Finish off the Dom Perignon.
There we go.
To 1K and being the fastest growing podcast in tech.
Delicious.
And the most profitable podcast in the world. See you next time.
That's our show.
That's our show.